I believe Trump is going to focus much of his attention on the 4 blue states in the Rust Belt, Upper Great Lakes, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, 4 traditionally Democratic states, but each of them have elected a Republican governor in 2010. Only Pennsylvania has now finally an elected Democrat. In the Michigan primary in March, more Michiganders came out to vote for Republicans, 1.32 million, that the Democrats 1.19 million. Trump is ahead of Hillary in the latest polls in Pennsylvania and tied with her in Ohio. Tied? How can a race be this close after everything Trump has done? Well, maybe it's because he said correctly that the Clintons' support of NAFTA helped destroy the industrial states of the upper Midwest. I'm reading from Michael Moore. You can find this article. It was written back in the summer at michaelmoore.com. Trump is going to hammer Clinton on this and her support of the Trans-Pacific Partnership and other trade policies that have royally screwed the people of these 4 states. When Trump stood in the shadow of a Ford motor factory during the Michigan primary, he threatened the corporation that if they did indeed go ahead with their planned closure of that factory and move it to Mexico, he would slap a 35% tariff on any Mexican-built cars shipped back to the United States. It was sweet, sweet music to the ears of the working class of Michigan. And when he tossed in his threat to Apple that he would force them to stop making their iPhones in China and build them here in America, well, that swooned the hearts, and Trump walked away with a big victory that should have gone to the governor next door, John Kasich. So I think his point is very, very good. It's very, very strong. And I think that is really the point that people have missed. I am Brian Crawford. You were listening to the River's Edge Radio Network, found at riversedgepgh.com, powered by NJL WebTech, honest, practical, and affordable. You can go to njlwebtech.com for all of your web servicing needs. If you want to hit us up, you can call us at 412-407-2PGH. That's 412-407-2744. Or you can hit me up on Twitter at RiverTalkPGH. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for tuning in this past election night. It was the biggest broadcast in network history, and I was glad to have you join me in taking part in the somber night that was the presidential election of 2016. It's interesting. Trump may lose the popular vote, but he won the Electoral College votes. And he picked out these 4 states that Michael Moore spoke of, and he's doing very well. He's still, I think Michigan is still, hasn't been called yet, but he's leaning there. It's leaning towards Trump in that race. I'll pull it up exactly, but he won Ohio, he won Pennsylvania, and it doesn't surprise me. And the reason why, and everyone likes to say that everyone's racist. That's the big thing. Oh, they're racist. They're bigots. Ugh, point the finger. That's the way that we operate here in the United States. If you don't agree with me, then you must be labeled as something so reprehensible that everybody can galvanize behind me in joining me in my hate, in my anger. And since the election, I had hoped that some things would calm down. And I understand people's concerns with Donald Trump. Don't get me wrong. There's some concerns that I have as well, especially with a Republican Senate and a Republican House and the potential that he could really push legislation through really, really easily and possibly get some Supreme Court justices in there that would be pretty conservative. And I know with the Republican president, the Second Amendment will be safe, and I'm happy about that. I'm a big proponent of the Second Amendment. But on other issues, such as marriage equality and things like that, it may be hard to get rid of those. I don't want those to go. I think I'm I'm very libertarian personally in my values, and as a nation, just do whatever you want. That's always been my kind of my thought process, at least in my adult life, is just as long as you're not affecting my life, what you do in your personal life is your business. So I do worry about that with him, especially with no opposition. And they could filibuster, but the Democrats may have shot themselves in the foot when they went with the nuclear option previously. I know the Republicans have done it too, but when you open that door, when you use the nuclear option, you've opened the door for future administrations and future parties to do that as well and use that nuclear option. So I'm hoping that they don't go around a filibuster, because I think debate is good, and I think that's what this nation needs. And I'll be honest, everyone always wants the president and Congress to work together, and I wouldn't mind them working together a little bit, but I'm always quite frightened when you see politicians working together. But these bullies, and that's what they are, they're bullies. They're the people who are going after the Trump supporters. They're bullies. We don't like what you think. We're going to demean you. We're going to call you names. We're going to bully you and push you around. These bullies, I don't think maybe they don't get it. Maybe they don't understand why people voted for Donald Trump. And Michael Moore, who is a liberal, really put it out there. It's the trade agreements. It's the fact that these jobs have gone away. I do not think, let me make this clear, that Donald Trump is going to make America a manufacturing hub again. I do not think he's going to bring back the steel industry or many of these other industries that have gone away. But you have to understand why people are voting for Donald Trump. I said in the primaries that Bernie Sanders had an education plan that I did not necessarily support, but I gave him credit because he was talking about it. He actually had a plan. No one else did, especially on the Republican side. I mean, the Democrats, some of the Democrats had somewhat of a plan together, but no one on the Republican side had a plan together. And I said, this is why younger people, this is why people my age or people younger than me are voting Democrat and really supporting Bernie Sanders, because he has a plan. He has a plan. Even if it's a plan that's not feasible, even if it's a plan that's not going to work, at least it will start a conversation. And with Donald Trump, people were looking for that recognition. They were looking for somebody to recognize that there was a problem. And Bernie Sanders recognized that there was a problem in education. No one on either party was recognizing that there was this group of people who were being left out of the equation, who were forgotten. And it was the forgotten people, the forgotten middle class of the Rust Belt who came out and won the election for Donald Trump. Not because they're bigots, not because they're xenophobes, not because they're haters, not because they disrespect women or because they look down on women. No, they came out to vote for Donald Trump because they lost something that they were trying to get back. And maybe Donald Trump's plan isn't a feasible plan. I don't think it is. But as I said with Bernie Sanders, and this isn't to promote Trump or excuse some of the terrible things he said, but at least he has a plan. And the people who are bullying these supporters, and it's outright bullying, online, in person, just the name calling and the demeaning and the disassociation and the failure to listen to people and putting people down. It's outright bullying, which is odd coming from a group who is angry with a candidate because of the way he bullies and intimidates people. It's odd that you would go to those kind of tactics. But it is bullying. And I guarantee you, most of you who are out there bullying online, the social media warriors, have never stepped foot in the Mon Valley, have never stepped foot in some of these places that are struggling, that have struggled, places that have seen their businesses go. I remember being a cashier at a Kmart in the Mon Valley, and previous to that, I worked in customer service up in Greensburg, and just a few miles down the road, the attitude was so different. People were so so bitter all the time, and it just wasn't a pleasant place. You would go to Greensburg, and really you had a very different atmosphere that you were working in than you did in the Mon Valley, and it's because a lot of these people, they've lost something. They've lost their jobs. They had good jobs, they're gone. They may not be college educated. They may not have other skill sets than what was taken from them, or maybe they just aren't. They don't have the money to move, and the opportunities aren't there anymore for them. So they're struggling. They're seeing remnants of a great town. I lived in Jeanette for a year, and I worked in Jeanette for a couple years doing some deliveries and things like that. And when you walk through Jeanette, or you live through Jeanette, first off, the downtown area, now there's nice parts of Jeanette, and it's not a bad place. I mean, I enjoyed my time there, actually. Really enjoyed going to Johnny's wife's place, which is a bar I could walk to from my house, and they always had great food, and it was kind of cool because it was on the top floor of this building. The first floor was a takeout place. The top floor was where the restaurant was. And you had to go around the back of the building and go up a set of steps, and the place was designed weird, and it was kind of cool, and I liked it, and it was so close to my house. I really enjoyed going there, and I enjoyed my time in Jeanette. I enjoyed walking through the town. But you walk through the town, and especially doing some of the deliveries I did in the downtown area, and you saw the buildings were all dilapidated, and it seemed empty, the downtown area. A lot of empty storefronts and bad roadways. I mean, you had to really swerve potholes, or you could really lose a tire. It was really a rough place to drive. But what was the most stunning thing about Jeanette was you would be there, and some people, I remember they built these brand new houses, and they were government subsidized. And I remember making a delivery to a girl's house, and she was full of hope, and she looked behind her place, and there was a wall right behind her backyard, and behind that there was the remnants of an old factory, a bare skeleton, a constant reminder of what Jeanette was. And she tells me, they say they're going to tear it down. They say they're going to tear it down. And I'll be honest, I didn't believe her. And I believe they did start tearing that glass factory down, but it stood for decades. And it was a constant reminder. And this glass factory, by the way, was practically the size of the downtown area. It was huge, and it was just left abandoned. And it was a constant reminder to the people who lived in Jeanette how great their city was, and what used to be, the promise that was there, the promise that was gone. And they had to look back at this empty shell, this skeleton, dreaming of what used to be. So when you want to put down somebody who supported Donald Trump, try to, instead of reaching out in anger, try to understand where they were coming from, and maybe from that point you could strike a conversation and come to real solutions, maybe solutions that will work, and a candidate who is a little more, or a lot more, agreeable. But just remember, maybe you don't have to look back over your shoulder and look at what used to be. You're listening to The River's Edge.
Go, it's green, come on! Go!
God damn it, Brian, you need to calm down with the road rage.
I'm sick of these people, these assholes.
The road rage, man. You gotta calm down on the road rage.
Well, I want to get to where we're going. We have a lot of great stuff coming up. We're going to Falling Water,
Bicycle Heaven,
the Mattress Factory,
Knob,
Trundle Manor. All right, which way do I go? Which way do I go? Come on, come on.
Right.
Too late now.
Right, come on.
Well, too late now. I gotta keep going. I'm not gonna sit here like some asshole.
Oh, come on, man.
All right, you're listening to The Culture Cruise. You can find us at riversedgepgh.com.
Your local Pittsburgh area museum podcast.
Yes, riversedgepgh.com, and come take a ride with us.
All right, we are back on the River's Edge Radio Network, and joining me with some post-election coverage, or I don't know if this is a joyful moment for everyone listening, or if people are in tears and protesting. But we have Mike. I know, Mike, you're happy.
Brian, it's a great day to be a Republican. I'm still 48 hours 72 hours. I'm still in catch-up mode. It's a good day to be a Republican in Pennsylvania. Trump won the Commonwealth for the first time since 1988, and Senator Pat Toomey won. But here in Pennsylvania, we still have a lot of work to do. I'm not being negative at all. However, we lost 3 statewide row offices, and yes, there were coattails. And if Trump wasn't on the ballot, Senator Pat Toomey would not have gotten reelected. Just looking at the numbers, coattails for those in the audience and the viewers who don't know what that is. In the political terms, coattails means when there's a top of the ticket race or the highest race in either party, that person at the top of the ticket, good, bad, or indifferent, can push those lower races, those down ballot races as they're called, over the edge. And with Trump driving voter turnout out, the Democrats, Republicans, Independents, he put Senator Pat Toomey over the top. I'm convinced of that. And here again, and it's no disrespect to Senator Pat Toomey. Toomey totally distanced himself, like others did. But it's going to be amazing. They're going to be coming around to kiss the brass ring, so forth. But look, it's a good day. We've got a lot of work to do. It's time to bring everybody together. Yes, people are pissed off. Yes, people are happy. But look, the voters have spoken. Okay, Democrat, Republican, Independent. Donald Trump is now president-elect, and we must move forward. He had great meetings in Washington, D.C. yesterday with President Obama, and Trump looks presidential-esque. He met with Paul Ryan. He met with Mitch McConnell. Look, they're going to hit the ground running. They've already started. And I can tell you, it's going to be a good day to be in the inauguration in D.C. And actually, there's a group of us already making plans already to go down there for 2 or 3 days, because I am not missing this for the world. As somebody who's been to my 4th convention, finally, somebody who's been to the 4th convention and taking part in the process, in the nomination process to the next president of the United States, it is just the pinnacle of being a member, who represented the 12th Congressional District back in July. This will be the icing on the cake to go to the inaugural, to see the swearing in, to go to the inaugural balls back in January 2017.
Yeah, it looks like I'm seeing here, coming across from Reuters and MSNBC, that people who were victimized by Trump University, they're being advised to settle. So it looks like that may actually go away as well. I know that's something that was looming from the primaries. Mike, the Republicans, I'm actually a little bit nervous because the Republicans have the Senate and the House, and
well,
I don't like necessarily for one party to have too much power. I think sometimes it's good to have a little bit of a balance.
Well, look, in the House, there's a super majority. I mean, if they want to veto, and look, there's no blue dog Democrats. There's no conservative Democrats. You're either left or left, or you're right of right, or you're center right, or unless you're in a moderate district somewhere in the upper Midwest. And but look, at the end of the day, we have the House, we have the Senate. And the thing is, and I know what you're gonna, leading into, Governor Corbett had all 3. We couldn't get anything done. But let me tell you something. Tom Corbett, great guy, great individual, but he couldn't bring people together.
Can Trump? They say it's the most divisive campaign in the modern political age.
And Brian, absolutely it was. Look at the amount of money spent on both sides and all the groups and everything. But here's the interesting thing is that, people say, you can't compromise your principles. Or I've always said, and you know me well enough, everybody needs a seat at the table, both sides of the aisle. And the one thing is, Trump is a New Yorker, and who is the head of the Democratic Party in the Senate, or the top spokesman, or the seniority, is Charles Schumer, where from New York City. And I guarantee you, they're going to fight. Yes, they're going to battle, but you know what? They're going to find common ground and commonality on a lot of issues. And like I said, look, New Yorkers stick together, Pittsburghers, Pennsylvanians stick together. Look, Trump is going to be a president for all 50 states and all the American territories and so forth. But he and Schumer are going to work together. And you know what? That's not a bad thing, because like anything, politics, if you read Trump's book, the art of the deal is compromise. I'm not saying we as Republicans have to compromise on everything, But like anything, you can't have your way all the time and get everything you want. Would you, sort of like, when you're voting for an elected official at all levels, you're never going to be with somebody, you're never going to agree with them on 100% of the issues. But if you're with them 60, 70% of the time, is that better? Is that better than working with somebody you're only with 30, 40% of the time? I'll take the latter. I'll take the 60, 70% of the time.
Should people in the LBGT community be nervous? Should they be afraid? Because Donald Trump has come out in the campaign and said he's in favor of the Defense of Marriage Act. There's also, fear that he's going to put in a conservative Supreme Court justice that will overturn the rights that the people in that community have gained under President Obama's 8 years in office.
Look, whether it be that group or a pro-gun group, people say, oh, Trump isn't as pro-gun or, and so forth. Look, any group, whether it be, the LGBT, community or whatever, look, individual rights, individual protections are going to be protected. And whether people like it or not.
But he did say he was in favor of the Defense of Marriage Act, correct?
You mean Pence or Trump?
Trump.
I'm going to have to fact check that. I do take your word for that. I don't have that fact in front of me. I believe he did. If I'm wrong, I stand corrected. But Brian, here's the thing: gay marriage is law of the land. The Supreme Court ruled on it. And it's unless you want to take it to court. And here again, if you try to take it to court and appear before the Supreme Court, and of course that doesn't happen overnight. That takes years. It's going to be very hard to overturn it. My biggest thing is that at least in my lifetime and your lifetime, that there's probably, even if Trump's in one term, which I highly disagree with, he'll be in for 4. He'll be in for another 4 years, a total of 8 years, 2 terms. But the balance of the court at least will be shifted from, it's 5-4 right now. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is getting up in age, and a little to educate your listeners is that not like in Pennsylvania where the retirement is 70, and oh, by the way,
75 now.
Well, unfortunately, that was my lead.
I'm actually in favor of that. I was the one who voted yes.
I voted no because, as we discussed before, look, longevity of age, we're all as long as you take care of yourself.
Yeah, but Donald Trump wouldn't be he's able to be president, but he's not eligible to be a magistrate in Pennsylvania?
Well, or magistrate or any judge, but the thing is, Brian, especially on the judicial side, on the judicial palette, is that, and like elected officials, once you're in office, look, judges shouldn't be career judges. Like I said, now, if you do well with a magistrate and you want to move up to Court of Common Pleas, then Commonwealth Court, Superior Court, Supreme Court, absolutely, you can move up through the ranks and so forth. But when it comes to magistrates or Court of Common Pleas, when you have people with bench 20, 30, 40 years, I have a problem with that. And the thing is, it's just, extending the longevity of somebody, their pension. We as the taxpayers are paying that pension. So, that's the whole thing. But look, the balance of the court is going to be intact. And at least in our lifetimes, there's going to be a conservative court. Thank God.
I'm excited to see that the Republicans made grounds in Harrisburg in the General Assembly. It is my hope that after Governor Wolf is gone, they start to lose ground just as retribution for that terrible Real ID Non-Compliance Act that they put in, which is just an insult to their constituents and, again, just pillaging the wallets of Pennsylvania
the thing
citizens.
Is, Brian, my apology. I don't have the final numbers for the House, but in the Senate, we now have 34-16. 34 senators, 16 Democrats.
But in the short term, I think that's a great thing because Governor Wolf has shown that he can be extremely radical in what he wants and his increases in spending. And I'm not, one of those people, Mike, as you know, who says never a tax increase ever. I think there are times that you need a tax increase, but my God, 2 budgets ago, we went an entire year without a budget, and he wanted, and the reason why is he wanted to have such a large tax increase that engulfed all of the tax increases from all the other states that raise taxes together. I mean, it's just I don't know what he's thinking. He's out of his mind when it comes to that. Other things I agree with him on. I think he did a great job with getting us moving towards better
medical marijuana and medicinal,
marijuana,
absolutely.
The liquor situation, that his approach to try to tackle heroin addiction in this Commonwealth. I think that's something that the Republicans need to take a little bit more seriously. It is an epidemic.
I agree.
So he's done some really good things, but when it comes to actually wanting to tax and his views on taxation, I mean, my God, he's so out of touch.
Well, Brian, and this is sort of like prelude to my next point is that there was an article already in Penn Live yesterday. Senator Scott Wagner, I'm sure you're familiar with. If you're not familiar with him, he was the individual who was the first statewide individual major race there was a special election for a retiring state representative. For a retiring state senator down in York, Cumberland, Dauphin County area, which is in the central part of the state, which is in the T part of the state, as it's known in political circles, is that they had a conferee meeting and they chose this state representative because he was the anointed one. Well, Senator Scott Wagner, who owns a refuse company, it's sort of like Morrow or Vogel, garbage disposal out here. He owns one of those like Waste Management in York, Pennsylvania. He did a write-in campaign and beat the Republican in the primary in the write-in, and he eventually turned to be state senator. Now the great thing with Senator Wagner is he doesn't need to take a state pension. He doesn't need to take the perks and per diem. He has foregone all that, and you can look on his website and just Google Scott Wagner. The point is, I've met him several times. Met him at the convention, and actually the local paper, the York Dispatch. I can send you the link if you'd like me to. Because actually, I got to find it from the convention. I got to it's buried on my Facebook page. But the thing is, though, he's been running for governor unofficially for a year. Okay. And he's going to announce, he's going to be the first Republican major candidate going to announce in the first quarter of 2017. So look, it's out of the gate running. He didn't officially announce yesterday, but a reporter asked him, and he goes, look, I'm running for governor. I'm not, it's not official yet, but I'm going to do it, in sometime in early 17. So the point is, Senator Scott Wagner is like Trump. I mean, he's got more money than known to man. And he doesn't care what he spends because he's got the best interest of the taxpayer at hand. So you're going to hear, for your listeners, Senator Scott Wagner from T and from York County, great guy. And I don't endorse, I don't believe in endorsements. We the voters, we the people will decide. But I tell you what, I'm already on board with Scott Wagner bandwagon already. And there's going to be a lot of people running on the Republican side, but I challenge anybody to take him on because he is as shrewd as Donald Trump and then some. And that's why a lot of people are going to like him because he tells it the way it is. He's blunt, direct, he's crass, and bottom line is he gets shit done.
I'm reading an interesting thing here. I'm wondering if Grubhub may be opening themselves up for a lawsuit. I don't know if you saw this, Mike.
Oh, I saw that.
The boss is telling employees who agree with Trump's rhetoric that they should resign. I wonder if there could be if there's any more clarity on that.
Oh, let's see. Defamation of character, libel, slander. That's very hard to prove, but good luck with that. I mean, you want lawsuits and you want to be paying out the wazoo for years to come. Look, the American voters spoke, and what I love to see is just if you look at some of the maps on, and somebody said it the best last night, in some Facebook chatter and commentary, was that it's still, if you look at where all the votes were, they're all in the urban cities. I mean, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Dallas, Houston, Miami-Dade County, Tampa, Philadelphia. I mean, here in Pennsylvania, like I said, we won the first time since 1988. But here again, this is how bad it is in Allegheny County. And Raja, the former, the person who ran for state senate and all that before, Raja's done a great job. But Mitt Romney did better than Trump in Allegheny County. I just read that in the Trib yesterday. I mean, it was like 40.8% to 40.2%.
How is that the case? Mitt Romney, didn't he diss the Bethel Bakery? I mean, come
Yeah,
on.
he did. He did. I know, but Brian, here again though, you look at every other Collier County from Fayette Green to Washington, it went Trump. But Allegheny County, and the thing is, people say, oh, well, the suburbs did very well, for Trump. But what kills us is the city of Pittsburgh, the Mon Valley, Clairton, Duquesne, Homestead. I'm not picking on those areas, but those are Democratic areas. And here again, State College, Luzerne County, and Philadelphia County in the southeast went for Hillary. So we've got a lot of work to do in PA. We've got a lot of work to do in Allegheny County, but moving forward. But you'll appreciate this story. So as I was telling you, the news crew, the ABC news crew that followed me around at the convention, contacted me, and I've been in contact with them ever since. I've actually become good friends with the producer, the head DC reporter, and the cameraman. So I get home, after we left the bar podcast Tuesday night. I'm in the car driving, and my phone rings, and of course I was on the phone with somebody else on the West Coast, and I was like, I got to take this. He hung up real quick. I called him back. I'm like, what's up? And here's the thing: I took the phone call 2:45 in the morning, and he's like, hey, I got this crazy idea. We want to do a story on Western Pennsylvania Rust Belt. Can we come in tomorrow? I'm like, you tell me what you need, and it's done. So after going back and forth and arranging stuff, he had the lead correspondent, the bureau chief from DC, who was at the Hillary rally, or I should say the funeral. I should say they were on a plane. They landed at 1:40 on Tuesday. We did some private exclusives one-on-one. I had put together a meet and greet, for like dinner and drinks for 5 or 6 people. Then we finished out to I took them out to Ambridge and finished out in Westmoreland County for the Victory Center out there. So the point is that, they hit the ground running. And the point is that, when the media calls, you don't turn them down. And yes, unlike Hillary, I took the phone call at 3 in the morning.
Mike, I'd like you to hang on after the break if you have the time. I have a weird news story that I think you'll appreciate. That's up next after this here on the River's Edge.
Hi, I'm Mike Storr, host of the Awesome Cast, which you can hear right here on River's Edge Radio. We're talking tech, getting geeky every week with people from Pittsburgh in the industry. Go check us out, awesomecast.net, or listen to us right here on River's Edge Radio, Thursday mornings, 8 a.m. after Funny Money.
Half-dressed, panting, and disheveled, the lawmakers, jolted awake by a middle-of-the-night vote, were applauded by colleagues as they raced into the Australian State Parliament. The Queensland lawmakers were quite the sight as they ran onto the floor of Parliament, barefoot, with no shoe, with just shorts on, no t-shirts on Thursday. And I guess it was a late vote that they were suddenly called for. It says the vote was called suddenly at 2:30 in the morning because opposition lawmaker Jeff Seeney was refused permission to give an unscheduled speech. So there you go. That would make politics fun, right?
Well, Brian, no lawmaker, Parliament, elected official, township supervisor, anywhere should be voting at 2:30 or 3 in the morning. Now, I can understand if you're under budget restraints, or you're on a timeline to get your budget passed. I can understand that, but
Mike,
that is just
Mike. You're missing? I mean, this is the perfect time to push pay raises for yourself and extra benefits and perks and things like that.
Well, Brian, that happened in 2006. The midnight pay raise, and that's how PA Clean Sweep started. All those lawmakers who voted for it came back and lost. So the point is that if it's a budget or an emergency stopgap or emergency spending situation, absolutely you vote at that. But here again, like any bill or any piece of legislation before you vote on it. And any legislator, even township supervisors, it's yes, yes, yes. You got to be required to read the bill, or worst case, have your staffer read the bill and have them prep you on it, at least, for God's sakes.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Unless there's anything else, we will move on.
Well, no, Brian. I mean, a lot of people think it's downtime, but we got to focus on the inauguration, bringing the country together, focusing on licking our wounds as Republicans. Where we won, where we lost, but we got to move on to 2017 and local races. Here in Pennsylvania, we've got a lot of judges, Supreme Court, Commonwealth Court, and Superior Court, and we've got here in Allegheny County local county council races and so forth. So the point is, we move forward, and looking forward to seeing in D.C. And actually, the good thing is, I could probably do Facebook Live or doing the swearing in because I'll be in D.C. on because the swearing in is January 20th, and that's when we normally do the show. So you could have exclusive as well.
Yeah, that would be great, Mike. I could actually, depending on the time, if it's not during showtime, if it is during showtime, we'll figure some way to make it work. But if it's not, I could actually give you access to the page, and we can have the live stream right at the River's Edge Facebook page.
Oh, you know what? That's even better. I didn't think about that. But no, that would be great because Brian, that's going to be epic, and I can't wait. I'd be more than happy to do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Brian. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
You as well. It's Mike McMullen. You heard him this past Tuesday at our election coverage. A great panel. We had Liz Victory. Thanks to everybody involved. Liz, we had Aaron Watson, Sean Logue, political attorney, and great guests, Amber Bamber and Jeffrey Mason, and you, if you decided to tune in or join the conversation live at the bar at Cousins Lounge right here in Millville, home of the best ceiling in Millville by far. Today is Veterans Day, and I did want to give a thank you to our veterans out there. And I know they're not veterans, but I want to give a special thank you to the police in this country. And they've been under fire, and in many cases it's been legitimate. There have been some issues, but not always. And we've gotten to a point in our society, and if you want to call us, somebody was trying to call the show earlier, but I was on the phone with Mike, but you can get us at 412-4072-PGH, 412-407-2744. You can give us a call right there. But in Canonsburg, unfortunately, a police officer was killed. He was ambushed, and there have been a lot of attacks on police officers, and their job has gotten harder, and it's been challenging. They're just constantly under scrutiny, and I think some of it's justified. I mean, you see some of the things, like the man who was shot in the back several times as he was running away. In other instances, there was actually a video out there. If you look it up, it's frightening, where a man has stolen a horse, and the police one of the sheriffs had tased him, and that was fair. He stole a horse, he was tased, he was knocked off the horse, but then after that, the guy ran up and started kicking him, and then you had over a dozen officers kicking this unconscious man while he was on the ground, and it was caught on camera by a helicopter in the sky. So some of the criticism is definitely warranted, but it's a dangerous job, and I give credit to anyone who's willing to do that job, especially in today's climate. So I just think it's important to be aware of what they are going through as well. That doesn't mean we should not expect reform and expect changes in behavior and better safeguards and body cams and things like that. But I think it's also important to understand that they do have a tough job, and it's a very difficult job, especially in today's climate. And it doesn't help when your mayor is not acting very professional. Mayor Bill Peduto was recently in a verbal altercation with a police commander over a riot in response to the election of President-elect Donald Trump. And there's a quote here. It says and this is talking about Bill Peduto getting involved on the street in this scene. And the mayor does oversee the police department. I will make a point to mention that. But this quote says, and this is from Robert Schwartzwelder, who is the president of the Fraternal Order of Police, Fort Pitt Lodge 1. And he told the Tribune Review that that's a dangerous, dangerous thing because the police officers don't know who's in charge, who they're supposed to take directions from. He said that the mayor is not a police officer, he's a city executive, and he's not trained to do this stuff. And I agree. I do think it's unprofessional, and that was also said earlier in the article from the Tribune Review. It's definitely unprofessional. He has control of the police department, but something like that should probably be discussed behind closed doors. But it was a very tense situation where the police were wearing riot gear masks and were using gas. The mayor says that it wasn't necessary. The mayor says that they did not need to take such extreme actions. The Fraternal Order of Police says that that is not correct and that several officers complained to the union. I can't pretend to know. I'm sure the police have certain signs, but again, we've seen some pretty tough policing in the past, so I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. But an interesting response from Peduto, he said that for the tone I took with Trapp, who was the commander, he said, I apologize. For being in charge of the police bureau of the city of Pittsburgh and for wearing that responsibility with my command staff, well, I think my commanders are tough enough to take some stern words. And that's a fair point too, but I think he's acknowledged this, that maybe those stern words should have taken place behind closed doors. And it's a shame that there's this interesting battle between the Fraternal Order of Police, the union, and Mayor Peduto. And a lot of it had to do with Chief McClay. And to be quite honest, I think some of the changes that McClay were making, and we talked about this in a previous episode, the last Saturday episode with Jay Cooper and Howie D. Mack, that those changes were good. And a lot of those changes were necessary, and I think that he was starting to change the relationship between the police and the citizens. I hope and pray that his efforts are not reversed. But I'm curious as to why people are protesting, and of course you have the right to protest, but can't we wait until Trump actually does something? Can't we wait until he, I don't know, comes down with some legislation against climate change or does something adverse to LGBTQ rights or does something that we do not like with immigration or refugees or something like that? Like, I understand protesting. Trust me, I'm all about protesting. I've held some myself. But usually you want to protest something. Last time I was involved with a protest, well, I'm trying to think. Was it? Yeah, it was against Representative Jim Casorio out in the 56th district, where I replaced a 12-year incumbent with another representative, and I definitely was a big part of that campaign. And one of the things that I felt compelled to do was to hold a protest outside of his office because he voted for a budget and supported a $10 million library building for Arlen Specter in Philadelphia. Well, the western side of the state, his side of the state, was suffering. But again, that was in reaction to something he did. It wasn't assumptive. But we live in an assumptive age where President Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize before he was actually in office. And I don't think President Obama was the worst president we've ever had, by far, actually. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes down as being one of the best presidents out of the last crop that we've had. I think he was better than Bush. I think he's done some things that were better than Bush. He's definitely one of the coolest presidents. I was talking to a friend about that. President Obama actually brews beer in the White House. So there's I'm a big brewery fan, so there's very little that I find cooler than that. So not definitely one of the cooler presidents, but I don't know. Obamacare is really the one, and that's his big signature bill, but to be quite honest, that's the one that I really have the biggest problem with. That's the one thing he's done that I'm really, really kind of sour to. I just don't like the concept of forcing someone to purchase something against their will, forcing someone into basically an oligarchy of insurance companies where you're still stuck. It's like one foot in the old system, one foot in the new, where yeah, you're forced to buy insurance providers, but you're chained down to a few, and then they can, of course, then raise the prices, and they're also accommodating for other people who aren't paying. So I have a problem with Obamacare. But I don't know. These protests, to me, just come across as people being sore losers. I didn't want Trump to win. I don't agree with Mr. McMullen in thinking that he was a great candidate. I think Hillary was an awful candidate as well. I wasn't going to be too upset either way on election night. You had Donald Trump, who has said some very questionable things and has certainly said some terrible things against women, and he doesn't have an understanding of the refugee situation. And on that point, a lot of people don't understand the refugee situation. Again, we like to label people and say, oh, well, if you don't agree, you're a bigot. Well, I'll tell you what, for a time I was unsure about the refugee situation, and anytime anyone questions it, they get labeled something and they get told, it's a rigorous process. It's a tough process. It's a rigorous process. And that's the argument that you get. Well, that's not going to enlighten anyone. I went to a panel. I went with Liz, actually. It was weeks before the election. And it was a panel on the refugee situation hosted by Doctors Without Borders. And they had a gentleman from Pittsburgh who helped assimilate refugees into our culture. And this panel was enlightening. I didn't realize this, but, all of this fear over refugees, only 50% of the refugees that apply to come into the United States of America make it in. And the screening is so rigorous. They don't just, well, let's just put it this way. If you want to get a government job, a low-end government job, just an entry-level government job, even a supplemental government job, they go through and they do an FBI test, and they take your fingerprints and everything else. To get into this country, you don't just get fingerprints taken. They actually take a sample of your DNA. Your DNA is actually on file as a refugee coming into the United States of America. The process is very rigorous. But just telling someone that the process is rigorous and expecting that to be the end of the conversation isn't really going to meet your needs. It's not really going to change anyone's mind, because that just sounds like you're brushing them off to the side. That doesn't really paint an understanding. Well, what does rigorous mean is the first question that comes to my mind. But I think if you educate people and you teach people, then people aren't stupid. They'll learn. And I compare it to the education situation that we had here under Governor Corbett, where Governor Corbett let the teachers' union completely monopolize on the debate. And realistically, the state contribution to education under Corbett's first budgetary year was the highest in the Commonwealth's history. It was a giant reduction in federal funds that the state could not make up. It was a one-time payout through the stimulus package that Governor Rendell took and slashed the state contribution, and he used the federal money to fill in and exceed what the state had been paying. But I guess Governor Corbett thought the people were too stupid to read a pie chart. I'm not sure. I don't know why the Democrats who are advocating for more refugees don't take an educational stance towards fixing the problem, towards coming to a solution. So that's what I would like to see happen, personally. There's a woman. She is out. Let me pull this up here. She's out in Rhode Island, and she is giving out free hugs in response to Donald Trump's election. And to me, that sends a much stronger message. Giving free hugs, showing love in a response to the perceived hate coming from Donald Trump, some of which is real, some of which I think is a little bit exaggerated, to be honest. But some of it is real, and I can understand why people are afraid. I can understand why people, and that's why I asked Mike, I can understand why people in the LGBTQ community are nervous. And I can definitely see why they would be on guard. But for all of you liberals out there, the ones who are bullying and attacking the people I spoke about, the people who I have met, the people who I know, the people who I grew up around. I grew up out minutes from Jeanette. I grew up out in very close to some of these areas that were hit hard, and I lived in some of these areas. And these people aren't racist. They aren't xenophobes. They aren't... They are angry because they lost their way of life. They lost their jobs, and I can promise you, and I will end on this note, I can promise you, without a doubt, that you will never, ever change someone's heart or change someone's mind, open their mind, by calling them names and by bullying them. I can promise you that. Monday I will be on with newly elected State Representative Aaron Bernstein. He's a millennial. He's only a couple years older than me, in his early 30s. He was just elected to the General Assembly. We're going to talk to him about what it's like running a race as a millennial and taking on this great responsibility, what new ideas he plans to bring to Harrisburg, and how his age will play an impact both in the negative and the positive. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for Fishing Without Bait this Sunday at 7 a.m. Local music up next. You're listening to the River's Edge Radio Network.
Would you be interested in developing conscious choice? Would you be interested in creating reactions rather than waiting for one to come? Would you be interested in combining serendipity and synchronicity? Would you be interested in making 1 + 1 = 3? Would you be interested in finding out about full impact mindfulness? If so, I challenge you to join myself, Jim Ellermeyer, a cognitive behavioral health therapist, every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. on the River's Edge, where we will challenge you to allow us to help you help yourself to fully participate in your life. Let the adventure begin.